On the cloud, right? Good morning, everyone. Just let you know, I am recording it. I have hit record for a couple of people that can't make it, so I'm sure that won't influence anything. The government Kickstart scheme for me is a very rare beast, in that it's a genuine win-win. You don't get many of those in the SME world. It's great for the economy because it takes people off universal credit and it starts them towards being a taxpayer. It's great for the youngsters involved, the risk of sounding patronizing. It gives them the first break into a career, which can be the hardest to get and get them started. And it's great for you. It is virtually free talent, and it gives you an injection of a bit of youth and innovation. And it gives you also the opportunity to test your systems in recruitment, induction, training, and management and the like. As always, there's a right way to do it, a wrong way to do it, and everything in between. So I'm delighted that Conor has joined us to give us the lowdown and best practice. Conor works with Olivia Flattery at the HR department, who I know some of you are working with or know already. And he's put a lot of time and resource of the HR department to make sure that they are an authority in this area. So he's done a fair bit of work on the presentation, as you can imagine, but he is happy to take questions as we go along. I'd suggest you put yourselves on mute and then just unmute yourselves and dive in with questions as we go along. He's very happy with that. But we've timed it that there'll be about a 15-minute Q&A at the end just to cover off things that haven't been covered to your specifics. So without any further fluff from me, please give a very warm welcome to Conor. Mate, take it away. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Yeah, look, delighted to be joined by everyone this morning, and thanks a lot for getting involved. I suppose from a company point of view, the HR Dept was all over this kind of from word go. And we've a good network set up of different clients who've worked through the system from the very start, where there was a couple of teething problems and stuff like that, right the way through to now, whereby we're hearing a lot of success stories of candidates working in companies that have come through the scheme and stuff like that. So yeah, we've been in from a pretty early stage, and we've got a good network built up. Most of my experience with the scheme has been working with clients and kind of helping them with their various issues and stuff like that. So I'll do my very best to answer all questions. If there's any kind of niche questions that I haven't experienced before, I'll be happy to take those offline at a later date. So I'm just going to share a presentation with you. I'll move through the slides. As Tim said, please feel free to jump in at any stage, because what tends to happen is every company has kind of a different agenda, has a different potential issue, and maybe just has a different question about where they fit into the scheme and stuff. So I'm not going to wait till the end for questions and stuff. Feel free to jump in as I go, and I'll kind of be as slow as I can towards the end of each slide to allow you to do that. So I'm just going to share there now. Okay, so yeah, I've already done a bit of an intro there about where the HR Dept is fit into the scheme and stuff like that. So for the purpose of this presentation, I've split the Kickstart scheme into 3 different steps. So first of all, there's details of the scheme. So that will cover, I suppose, what the requirement is for employees, what the requirement is for employers, and where the government fits in. I'll move on to then your own application. So thankfully, the HR Dept has quite a good portal to guide you through the process. So anybody who's attended here, I'll be sending a link to that portal, and it really makes the whole process short and sweet for anyone who uses it. And the third step I'm going to speak about is a little bit of a different approach that some companies have taken to the scheme, based on trying to shorten the time from your actual intro to the application versus to getting somebody on site, getting your candidate started. So I suppose just why Kickstart? When I think about it myself, I've kind of been involved in this type of scheme from both sides. So in a previous role, I was team leader for transition year students who would come on site for kind of short-term placements and stuff like that. So I've seen companies do it poorly and companies do it well, and kind of the benefit and the ramifications of each side for both the company and the candidate. The Kickstart scheme itself, I suppose for me, when I left college, before I even got my results or graduated or any of that kind of thing, I was actually lucky enough to get into a 3-month placement, something similar to what Kickstart is offering. And yeah, it really does give you a good grounding in the kind of getting up, going to work, working with the kind of IT systems, getting to know people, working with kind of documentation and stuff like that. So it's a fantastic grounding, and something that definitely benefits you in your second role and beyond, to be honest. And it's always something that I kind of refer to. So just going to start off with the criteria for the scheme. So from an applicant's point of view, so the age range is 16 to 24, and they must be currently on universal credit, and they must commit fully to the scheme. So what I mean by that is any applicants or candidates who are currently receiving additional benefit beyond the kind of basics. So if you're receiving, for example, disability or something along those lines, if you're committing to the Kickstart scheme, it basically means that you forego any of those additional benefits, and your minimum wage for 25 hours or whatever the total hours worked is going to be, that is your total salary and your total income. So I suppose from an employer's point of view, any referrals or applicants that are sent through to you, they'll be aware of all that. It's just, yeah, I suppose I just wanted to raise that's what the applicants are coming in with. So from an employer point of view, you must have at least one set of accounts published on Companies House. So that's something that's popped up that wasn't really flagged at the start of the scheme for a lot of employers, but that's basically part of the criteria from the employer point of view. And you must have been incorporated, your company must have been incorporated over 12 months ago. So I'm not sure if that affects anybody here, but maybe you could speak to Tim and myself afterwards if that's the case. The job itself then must be a brand new position. So the purpose of the scheme is for additional roles. The idea is that, for example, if you had 3 office administrators on your books, the idea of the scheme is that you add a 4th as opposed to making one redundant and replacing them with a Kickstarter candidate. So that's really, I suppose it's an important aspect of the scheme, because the idea is to kind of shift the balance of candidates on universal credit to getting them to work, as opposed to using it as kind of a free labor to replace a current employee or something along those lines. The next, I suppose, important part is that there is an expectation on kind of job support and training for the candidate when they come on site. So this is quite an important part of the scheme, and quite a big expectation of the scheme. So basically I suppose it covers some of the areas that I've mentioned here. So on the job training, work search support, kind of skills development, mentoring and careers advice, CV and interview prep. So these are all things obviously that could be done maybe with your HR department or with somebody who's in the know on site. There's also a grant offered by the government for training and equipment. So a big recommendation, I suppose, that's come through from the scheme is that maybe you look at an intro to Excel course online or something along those lines, because there is a grant offered. And again, from my own experience of kind of looking after these schemes on site and stuff, that kind of online training, it can be a real win-win in a way, because first of all, it gives the employee a sense that, okay, something has actually been set up for me here. There's a sense of purpose when I come into work. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing X or Y times during the week. And also, I suppose, from a supervision point of view, it's a great opportunity to, I don't want to use the word offload, but I suppose it's a great opportunity for you to put a candidate into training for maybe 2 hours at a set time of the week where supervision may be minimal. So from my point of view, it was always 10 a.m. to 12 on a Monday. I used to send the students to the online training course that we had set up for them. And that just gave me an opportunity to catch up on things for the weekend and stuff like that, while also they feel like they're working and that they, I suppose, they're not being left to their own accord for a couple of hours or something along those lines. So I think the training is a really important aspect of the course, and can be really beneficial, I suppose, to both parties. So then the government, sorry,
can I just ask a question with that, with the training and supervision? Do they have to be based in an office, or can they work from home?
No. So basically the grant is worth £1,500, and that is to cover training and equipment. So working from home is an option for any candidate that comes on board as well. But obviously if it's kind of over to the company then to look at how much equipment is going to be required. Is the expectation that they use their own PC? Are you going to take the costs out of the grant? It's it's kind of over to the company to kind of look at those aspects of it. But working from home is 100% an option for this scheme.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, effectively, once you've accepted a candidate, they're effectively an employee for the time they're with you. So they're covered by the same kind of details as a new joiner would be. Yeah. So yeah, from the government side of things then, so they're going to cover minimum wage salary for 25 hours a week for a period of 6 months. And also, as I mentioned, the training and equipment grant of $1,500 per employee. So this grant really is, I suppose, to be used for setup costs and training courses if you decide to go the online route. And it's part of the first payment will be to reimburse the company this exact amount, $1,500. So that will either be your setup costs, or if you haven't used the full $1,500 entitlement, it'll come off some of the salary that you've paid. So I've just added in the printout from the government website, which just goes through how the installments are paid and how the company is reimbursed. So the first installment, as I mentioned, will be a £1,500 payment. So that effectively is to cover either the setup costs if you've used the entire $1,500 entitlement for training and equipment, or it's basically to start to chip away at the cost of salary to date for the applicant that started. So I suppose it's important to mention at this point that you will need to set up the employee and pay them as normal for a couple of weeks until your installments start to kick in. Okay, and then that's just to mention, then the second installment will be 1/6 of the total grant. So the total grant will be the 6 months by 25 hours by minimum wage, plus whatever you've used from the $1,500 training and equipment grant. And then that total grant then is split into installments of 6 after your first installment is paid of £1,500. So yeah, hope that's clear for everyone. So I suppose the second part then of our 3 steps is the application process. So I suppose, what do you need for this? As I mentioned, you'll need to pay the applicant a salary until your first installment of $1,500 comes through. You need to meet the scheme criteria. So I spoke about a couple of bits and pieces earlier on that is important for you to meet. You need to have your job duties. So what I'm going to send out on the back of this presentation is a standard kind of administrator job description to give you a flavor for what type of duties, what type of, I suppose, information are being posted on the scheme, and I suppose our applicants are being recruited on the back of. So I'll be sending that out in an email following this presentation. And finally, then just the various details of the role. So working from home, is it going to be in the office? Is it going to be a mixture of both? And the total hour. So what some companies have done is they've decided to pay an additional 14 hours themselves and actually hire someone for 39 hours a week. So that's another option that companies are using. So again, that's something that you just need to have a decision made at the application stage, really, on what direction you're going to go with regards to those 2 things.
Sorry, Conor, does that imply you can't change that halfway through? So after 3 months, you can decide that someone you've got for 25 hours a week can bump them up to 39.
I suppose like that would be an agreement that could be made some way through the scheme, Tim. But ideally, it would be clear what the 6 months is going to look like from the outset.
Understood. Thank you.
Conor, sorry, I had a really quick question. Are you able to, so I have 2 job areas that I need to hire people, so they're different skills. How many people can you hire via the Govt Kickstart? I might have missed that. So
there's actually no limitation on how many placements you can take, but I would just bear in mind the candidate pool that you're reaching into, because you are going to be looking at a lot of maybe low to unskilled candidates. So I suppose, yeah, you need to kind of manage your expectations in terms of if you'd like to take on 5 people and there's a certain skill set required for all 5 positions, the chances are you may not fill all 5, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question now? Or should I leave you go through the presentation? I've got 2 quick ones. So what if the applicant is not on universal credit? Is that a line in the sand, or do they have to be put on universal credit before they can be accepted?
They basically, you won't be sent a candidate that isn't on universal credit. They won't qualify for the scheme.
Okay. And second one, you mentioned 25 hours at minimum pay. What does that actually work out in real sums, in real pounds?
So that will actually depend on the age of the candidate.
Okay.
So
we're talking about apprentice, 18 years of age, sort of thing. What is the salary sort of we're looking at? So
the minimum at the moment is, I think it's 7. I think it's around a 750, 760 mark for an 18-year-old, Simon, and that increases then as you move through the age categories.
So we're looking at about 180 pounds, 190 pounds a week, is it?
Yeah.
That the government will pay.
Yeah, that's it, Simon. Yeah, roughly around those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry, can I jump in with an add on that? So if you knew someone who would be like the perfect candidate, but they weren't for whatever reason on universal credit, does that mean that they would have to apply to be on universal credit, and then you could tie both ends up, as it were?
Yeah, that's effectively it, Tim. It's important to have a look at the kind of, and I'll go through it in a second, about the job centre and the job coach, because. Oh,
sorry, mate, am I jumping ahead?
Yeah, so basically you'll be assigned a job centre and a job coach, and it's important that the candidate comes through that route effectively. So you could be taking a bit of a chance with regards to actually someone leaving a job, for example, to go on universal credit to try and get access to this role, you know.
Understood. Thank you.
Is there anything else there just before I move on? Okay, perfect. So just in terms of your application then, so thankfully the HR Dept has put a really good system together to assist people with their application. So the initial stage would be an expression of interest. So I'll be sending out an email following this presentation with a link. Basically, you follow the link, you fill out a 1-page document that will be your expression of interest. That gets sent to the HR Dept, and we would hope that within 24 hours of your expression of interest, someone from the HR Dept will make contact with you, and they'll work with you from there to work through your application. And yeah, they'll actually do it via email or via phone, whichever suits you best, and they'll help you work through your application. And yeah, so basically, I spoke a little bit earlier, you just need your job details and company details for that follow-up phone call, and they'll kind of take it from there with you. They'll work through the process with you, get your application complete, and once your application is complete, then you'll be assigned a job coach and a job center. So effectively what that means is, if the role is based in whatever on site or work from home, it'll be where the role is based on site, you'll be assigned a job center or a job coach in that area. They will work with your unique reference number, which you'll be assigned on the end of your application. And basically from there, they will send through referrals, which will be your applicants, basically. So from there, then it's up to the company to basically screen the applicants or the referrals, and go back to the job coach, job center. If you've kind of had a phone call, you're happy with a applicant for a role, and then basically the job coach will tie it all up together using the unique reference code. So
just a question, just to check I've understood this correctly, because HR is definitely not my forte. So essentially, you post a job, so like you would post it on LinkedIn or whatever, but you post it with you guys and you fill in all the info, like you said. And then one of your people essentially goes and finds you candidates that meet the criteria, you interview them, employ them, the government pay for them, and at the end of the 6 months, are you expected to employ them, I'm guessing?
No, there's no expectation at the end of the 6 months. The scheme is the scheme, effectively. So I suppose more so the expectation would be that at the end of 6 months, obviously, if you're happy with the candidate, there's a role available for them. Of course, you can employ them if you so wish. But I suppose the whole kind of concept of adding an additional role would mean that the expectation would be after 6 months, that additional role may no longer be available.
Right. Okay. So it's basically you could have, yeah. Okay. It just I'm looking for the catch. That's just my character. So I'm digging to try and find where the catch is. I don't know if anyone else feels the same with this.
I can help answer that one.
Pardon?
I can help answer that one. I mean, basically, we've been looking at, in the work that I do, we've been looking at grants and what the government's trying to do to deal with the pandemic. And they are worried about youngsters not getting a start in life or losing jobs because they used to work in Tesco or hospitality behind a bar and all that kind of stuff. And this is basically, rather than pay unemployment benefit on a massive scale, you may as well have the same person working with someone and using the money they would have spent on unemployment benefit, and that money going to the employer who's taken the brave step of taking them on and training them. So it's the kind of bigger picture angle of, okay, if we're going to spend this sort of money anyway, let's try and get them into a job, and hopefully that will create economic activity, people start spending, et cetera, et cetera. So there aren't many catches on this one. This is very much trying to help young people.
Boris couldn't have been smart enough to come up with this himself.
This is why Rishi's quite popular at the moment, because it wasn't Boris.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Shailesh, have you actually, has anyone here, can I ask a question to anyone that's taken someone on board already and the feedback of the quality of the candidates?
Yeah, so we haven't personally, but we've been telling a lot of charities who have been opening shops, etc., about this, because they're quite happy to take young people and the hours fits with their model. And one of the big charities we work with is called Far Place. And a lot of young people are just grateful for the opportunity to be doing something. So they're pretty happy, and getting the £1,500 times 12 different people to work across 12 different shops in the north of England has been really handy for them, because then that's made up for lost trade. They've been able to invest in the staff in the shops, make the shops look better, etc. So and they've been manned. So if it fits with what your needs are, then this is a very good scheme.
And just to pick up on something you said there, Shailesh, like if you, for example, if you get yourself into a company that uses the training and equipment grant effectively, it's it's going to be really beneficial for 6 months for a young person if they're getting kind of access to the environment of an office, the environment of working from home. They're getting some maybe online training, on the job training, maybe some help with their CV and job skills moving forward. As Shailesh said, like to get all that wrapped up in 6 months for what it's going to cost the government, which isn't a huge amount, it's a really beneficial 6 months for someone who potentially has minimal or no experience at the moment.
Yeah.
Conor?
I've got a question. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go.
Yeah, sorry. It's Emma. Hi.
Yes, hi, Emma.
I can't see myself, so I've got no idea what I look like, which is not a good thing. Basically, I know a young person that is on the Kickstart scheme, and he's an absolutely lovely boy. He's just like a bit like my two boys. He's exactly the same. His mother is my friend, and he just like didn't really get himself organized to go into uni, and he's had, difficult thing with his dad and everything. And he was smoking a little bit of dope and things like that, and wasn't really getting himself focused. But the mum and dad are absolutely lovely. And he's now doing social media in a company in Brighton. And thank God for that, because he's so bright when you speak to him. He is so bright. And I would definitely use this scheme if I had, to be honest, I don't have a year of accounts and I don't have an office, but I would definitely use this scheme, because I love getting people that are not, ready. And I love training people up to do it the way I'd like it done. So for me, it would be perfect. And I know it works. So just wanted to share that. That's all.
No, 100%. And I kind of mentioned my own experience with something similar. When I first left college, it was like a 3-month placement. There was no real kind of entry requirements or stuff like that, but it just gave me a really good flavor of kind of office life and stuff like that, and kind of gave me the impression that it's something that I can do and that I am cut out for, and it does kind of build a bit of confidence from that point of view, definitely. And sorry, there was another question, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
so it's me, Conor. Thank you. Just a quick
Sure.
one. Are you given guidance from the government as to what constitutes effective training and career development that you give the candidates?
So not really. There's some details on the website, and I'd be happy to have a chat with you after if it's something that you want to explore a little bit more. But I suppose it's more about not having somebody kind of maybe in answering phones for 6 months and then kind of send them on their merry way. It's just more to add a couple of layers to their placement, you know.
Okay.
So I think for me, the kind of along the lines of the kind of intro to Excel or something along those lines, I think it'd be money really well spent from the training grant to give the kind of candidate, if they haven't done something like that before, they haven't done any kind of formalized training, it's just to give them that experience as well as some of the stuff in the office, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Sorry, I have another question. I'm just full of them today. Would this type of scheme work for a trainee designer? So they come in completely unskilled, but they want to become a designer, and we to use the government £1,500 grant to buy them a suitable computer, send them on the required design training, and obviously they would receive in-house training as well. I mean, with that though, we would want the view to employ them at the end of it. We would be creating a role. We wouldn't want to be investing all that time, I was about to say, and money, but it's not our money, but still, you get the picture. Would that, could you make something like this work?
Definitely. Definitely. That sounds like almost a kind of dream placement in terms of what this scheme is all about. I would, on that, if you're planning to put a big investment in, I would be cautious enough with your recruitment process, however, because if you're planning on putting a big investment in with the hope of upskilling somebody who has maybe little to no experience, I would maybe add an extra layer to your recruitment process, as opposed to if you were just hoping to take someone in, give them a bit of experience and kind of move them on after the 6 months and use the scheme in that kind of way. So that might be something I could speak with you after, Selena, if you wanted to, about maybe just making sure you have a little bit of a robust process in place if you are hoping to go down that kind of very, very positive route.
Yeah, there's actually 2 to 3 roles I would look to use this scheme for, that 2 out of 3 do have the longevity.
Absolutely.
And my recruitment process is not robust at all. So yeah, we should chat. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. No, that sounds good. But again, I suppose I kind of mentioned it earlier. Just if you do have 3 roles, for example, just manage your expectation with regards to the quality of the candidates that you're going to receive in. And obviously, the hope would be there would be enough out there to fill the 3 positions, but just kind of bear that in mind when you're putting a kind of a number on how many placements you'd like to have.
Conor, if I could,
Sam's just
sorry,
Sam's
just one second. We got, I think we're going to say the same thing, Simon. We've got Sam on the call, who I was going to ask to speak at the end and just share his experiences. He's got a few people from Kickstart, and I'm sure he's got some valuable insights to share at the end.
Okay, great, no worries. That was same from you, Simon, was it? Okay, perfect.
Great minds think alike.
Absolutely, and the timing was identical and all, Simon. Yeah. Is there anything else on that before I just move on? I think that's okay. Perfect. Okay, so just a couple of details on your application then. So it won't happen overnight. So I've asked Tracy, who's kind of like a subject expert on all things Kickstart from the HR Dept, what's the kind of average timeline people are looking at. So from the time you enter your expression of interest to actually the candidate starting in the company, Tracy is putting an average of about 3 months on that process. So it sounds a lot, but I suppose for a successful placement, given the way the scheme operates and stuff like that, it's not ideal, but it's not outrageous either. So Yeah, that's kind of the timeline at the moment that Tracy's offered. Obviously, some have come in within a couple of weeks, and maybe some have stretched over that. I wouldn't expect a huge amount of them to go beyond 3 months, to be honest. Admin roles then have been the most successful.
Conor, sorry, this might come later, and the scheme is due to end on the 31st of December, correct?
So that's application in by the 31st of December, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So the 6 months will, if somebody starts the scheme and applies on 29 December, and let's say in theory recruits really quickly in Jan, they've still got the 6 months into 2022 for that.
Yeah, that's at the moment, Shailesh. Yeah. So I'm assuming they're going to let the scheme run to the end of December as they've planned. I know there's been speak about kind of other areas of the employment market being under-resourced and stuff like that. So I'm assuming they're going to let it go to that date, because it was supposed to be September, and they've extended it because basically they were happy with how the scheme has been going. So I'm assuming that they're not going to pull that date backwards.
Okay, can I jump in there, because I've got some experience with the growth accelerator scheme that the government ran to subsidize business coaching for small businesses, and it was pulled at very short notice.
Okay.
So we hope and we assume, or we hope rather, that the scheme will keep going to the 31st of December, but it's quite clear that job vacancies, unfilled job roles in the economy is now back to pre-pandemic levels. So I wouldn't rely on it going through to the 31st of December unhindered.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I suppose like the best thing you can do is I suppose put a bit of thought into upcoming roles, whatever else, and if you can accelerate them a little bit to get the scheme up and running for you, I suppose do that. But at the moment, that's the timeline that the government are given. So yeah, just admin roles, kind of your standard kind of office admin. I have a job description done up that I'm going to send out to everybody after the call, and they've been the most successful placements. So as you can imagine, just quite low skill, quite entry level role, and you cast a bit of a wide net on that one, to be fair. And just, I suppose, give a clear description of the role, and maybe if you're looking for specifics in the candidate, so specific may not be specific education, but you may be looking for enthusiastic, kind of, analytical thinker, that type of stuff. So just have an idea about those kind of qualities as well while you're putting your application through. And once you've been assigned your job coach and job center, one thing Tracy has really been speaking about is it is important to kind of keep onto those and follow up. I know that each company has a different amount of admin they can actually put into getting somebody through on this scheme, but definitely from a timeline point of view, trying to develop regular contact with your job coach is proven to be really important until obviously you get your placement filled. So yeah, that's, I suppose, just a couple of pieces of information that have come through and a little bit of advice for people applying on the scheme. So just finally then, the third step that has come through from the kind of speaking to clients and stuff like that. Some people have taken the Kickstart scheme and just gone a completely different approach with it. So I've called it the recruitment approach. So basically what some people have done is, once they've received their kind of unique reference code, they've actually gone and advertised the position that they're looking to fill on Facebook and Indeed, or whatever the job site that they're currently using in their company. And what they've done is they've referenced the Kickstarter scheme, or the Kickstart scheme, and the Kickstart criteria throughout their, I suppose, job advert. And then when candidates have come to them, they're doing the screening before they go through the job center, job coach, and then they're referring the candidate back with the reference number. So I suppose what that's doing, it's kind of turned the scheme around backwards in a way, in that you have a candidate that you're happy with, and you're kind of putting the onus on the candidate to go and work with the job coach. They have the unique reference number, and kind of hand it over to the job coach to tie it all up together for you. So I suppose from this side of things, it's a bit more admin heavy, but you're probably going to cut that 3 months down a bit, and you're going to cut maybe the quality of candidate. You're going to increase the quality of candidate that's coming through the system for you. So I just said I'd mention this at the end of the presentation, because if you're in a position to have somebody do the admin on this, it can be a really successful way of getting candidates in the door.
And it's not frowned upon to do it this way, I'm assuming.
It's probably not. It probably wasn't the intention of the scheme, but it's something that the clients we've spoken to have had a lot of success with at times, because it basically means that the client or the applicants are coming to you. You're doing the screening, and you're basically putting the responsibility on the applicant to go and get your job coach to tie this all up for you. You know, so it's kind
you're
of
also getting what you want, I suppose, is the point. You're getting pre-tested, someone that you've figured out is right for you, and you're getting them to come through the system that way.
Exactly. So for example, you could be waiting on your job coach to send referrals through. You get a batch of referrals through, and you may not be happy with any of those referrals. So you have to go back to your job coach looking for more. This probably just cuts down the timeline between each step for you. Obviously, it's a little bit more admin heavy, but it's some of the clients have really been speaking highly about this approach in terms of cutting that timeline down and improving the quality of the candidates. So it's definitely something that if people wanted to go with, it's a fantastic approach. Obviously a little bit more admin heavy. One hugely important aspect of going this approach is when you're posting the job advert, if you are posting about criteria, you need to reference the Kickstart scheme throughout. So it needs to be absolutely clear that the company is not looking for 16 to 24-year-olds, because that's a discrimination case straight away. So it has to be really clear that as per the Kickstart scheme, 16 to 24, universal credit, and make that really, really clear.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, is there anything else on that then, or are we good? Okay. If I suppose if everyone's happy, I'm happy. Thanks a lot to everyone for coming. We did get some questions sent through before the start of the presentation. I think I've touched on a lot of them, but I'm just going to make sure that they're all answered before I kind of open the floor to any other questions. So can the employee work from home? Yes. How long does the government pay? So we spoke about that, 6 months. Is it restricted to certain skills? So it isn't, but as I mentioned, be wary of the candidate pool that we are dealing with here, and that don't be kind of over adventurous with how many skills or what kind of qualifications you're looking for your position. Okay, yeah. So I think I've covered the rest of what was sent in. Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, just a quick one. How do you actually apply?
So after this call, Rory, I'm going to send everyone that was on the call an email. So that email will contain a link to the HR Dept portal where you can put your expression of interest through. I'm going to send on an administrator job description that you can kind of play around with if you want to change the role to like design, for example. If it's marketing, if you want to just add some specifics to your company, you can add it to this job description, and it'll make your application a little bit easier for you.
Great, thank you.
On the question about having an office.
Yes.
And you and Tim will probably understand why I'm asking that question. So if somebody has a company that's based at home, that's their registered office, just because that's easy for company's house, so you don't lose post. But the person's going to go work, for example, in a serviced office with you. Can we use a serviced office address?
Prefer to use I think the registered office is the kind of intended one, Shayla, to be honest, but
okay.
Yeah, but hold on a minute, because that depends. I mean, my registered office is actually my accountant's, so I think we might be all right there. You know what I mean? It may well be that you would be okay, Shayla, because that's where you're operating. It's not necessarily where you're.
May I have your attention, please?
We use our serviced office address, and rather than our accountant's address, which is our registered address. The forms that you actually get, you can add your correspondence address on there.
Sam, while you're there, is now a good time just to sort of share your experiences of the scheme, sort of for a couple of minutes, and just how you found it and what you would say to people that are considering it.
Oh, well, I think, Conor, thank you for your presentation. First of all, I think you're spot on about a lot of stuff, everything, basically, especially, what you said to Selena there about having a robust process. You don't want to screw it up and end up with people that not willing to work as hard. What I would say, though, is that I guess given the pandemic and everything, we have found a lot of people, graduates with good degrees from good universities. They've just not been able to find a job, or they've just been lots of interviews, but a lot of businesses are scared to hire. What we did was we initially put out adverts for trainee web developers, and we got 0 applications, right? And then we changed the job description from trainee web developer to like a digital assistant. We've got 20 applications. So it goes to show that, like, make it easy for people to apply, and then you can kind of sound them out. The more people you meet, then you kind of get an idea of who you're working with. And what we found is that our job centres, so Fulham, the one who's closest to our web business in Hammersmith, they were able to do interview open days with us. So we would sit there with our little stand. Well, we haven't got one yet. We'll order one from Simon shortly. But we had like a little banner which said, work with us, local web development agency. And because we built that relationship with them, like Conor said, keep the communication going. They're willing to work with you guys, right? So initially we took on 10, and now we've been approved for another 6 Kickstarters. But Conor's right, you need to make sure that don't expect too much, because a lot of them, they're kind of fresh, or and I can kind of say it because I'm not that young anymore, but the expectation is almost like they're going to all become, this Instagram generation. They're all going to become really successful, rich, and drive a luxury car, and they want everything straight away. And what we found is that a lot of them can't actually live on what Kickstart pays them. By after the first month, if you if you're not very clear with them at the start, that's all they're getting paid, then you just need to be a little bit careful that they understand. If you're only paying that amount for the 6-month period, you've got to make it very clear. We top it up to the London living wage, and then instead of the 15 hours that the 25 hours that is subsidized, we actually give them 37 hours. So what Selena said earlier, about training them to be designers and stuff like that, yes, you can do it, but you do need to spend a lot of time with them. We've actually got 2 people dedicated full-time training them. If you just leave them along to do a course, it works and it doesn't work. They kind of get bored, and so it's good to kind of have that regular engagement with them rather than just sending them on something. And talk to them about the growth opportunities, targets and stuff. We've already offered somebody a full-time contract because they've done really, really well. So but yeah, like, just going back to what Conor said, make sure you got a robust process, and I would speak to like someone like Conor, expert about this, so that you make sure you get the most out of it. Okay, because it's all very well getting money in to train these people and stuff like that, but to give them a fair shot, in life, I think you do need to, the time investment, you don't underestimate that. You have to really work with them.
I think that's a fair point, Sam. It's unlikely that they're just going to come in and act with agency and autonomy on day one, isn't it? The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. Actually, I just say at this point, I've got a strategic alliance with Hiring People, which is a really good job board firm. So there's preferential rates for any of you for that. And if there's demand, then maybe, Conor, we could put something on to look in more detail at building job descriptions and building a more robust interview process. So if there's interest in that, let me know, and I'll just schedule another one of these to run through that.
Yeah, definitely, Tim. And yeah, I suppose just to touch on some of the stuff that Sam said, a lot of companies are putting in a lot of, I suppose, different varying time and energy into the scheme. Some people very much see it as they'll kind of do a young person a favor and give them some experience for 6 months. Some people are looking at it, okay, I have a great opportunity here to get somebody fresh, put some good time into them, train them up and stuff. And just Sam, I suppose you mentioned about topping up the hours and stuff like that. I think you should probably only be topping up hours if you're planning on putting the additional effort in to train the person and kind of embed them into the company, because obviously an extra 14, 15 hours per week is fantastic for a young person, but not if they're going to be sitting on their hands for that time. So I think it's important to kind of weigh up where the placement is going to sit within your organization, what you want from it, and how much kind of investment you are willing to put into it. So I think that's a good point, Sam. Is there any other questions coming through? I will be sending out just a feedback form with that email and stuff like that. So is there anything else at the moment? Obviously people are happy. I'm happy to take follow-up questions if something comes to you at a later date.
Can I just quickly ask on that point of hours?
Yes.
You mentioned in your presentation you can top it up by 14 hours to 39, and Sam mentioned 37 hours. I totally take your point on having them there doing nothing. It's got to be value time. But is there a maximum? I mean, can you seem to have both avoided going beyond 40? Is there a reason for that?
No, there's not a reason for that. It's just, I suppose that would be the standard working week, depending on if you're paying breaks or not, would generally go between 37 and a half and 40 hours. So that, I suppose, that's where the range is coming from, Phil.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I just add something for what I find is that shared office people, they're quite willing to work with employers on this. If you're giving an opportunity to a young person, and if you want to take out, even if it's just like a co-working desk or something, we've managed to do a deal with WeWorks. Instead of paying £300 per person, we pay 100. So, there's lots of things available. People are willing to support you, and you can get additional training grants from local government. So we've got additional funding from RBKC. But speak to Conor about it. I'm sure he'll be able to guide you with the process and getting things right.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. Is there anything else then from people? I'm happy to, as I said, to take follow-up emails and stuff on the back of this if people have questions throughout their process or whatever.
In terms of sharing this presentation, I appreciate you've recorded it. I'm happy to channel everyone to your two names. But do you want us to have a recording of this put out on our LinkedIn and stuff like that, and just say, look, this was just awesome, or something to that effect, or do you want us to just channel people to you if they've missed it? Should I
put this on YouTube? Is that the thing to do? I could put a recording of this on YouTube. I'll share the link if you've got people that I mean, if everyone on the call is happy for me to do that, it might be a bit long to put on LinkedIn. And then if you've got people that you think would benefit, then you can share via that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best show, Tim, to be honest. I mean, yeah, if you're sticking up a 50 to an hour minute video on LinkedIn,
cool. Yeah, it was. Rory, was there? I've just seen you unmute yourself. Did you have a quick question before?
No, I was actually just going to say thank you, Conor. That was very, very helpful. I'm sorry I had to dash out. I've got a problem with a leak. So, well, not like that.
Not of the vegetable variety. Conor, on behalf of the gang, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I think to speak to Selina's point, I like to. I can't stop my brain looking for the catch-in stuff when I come across something new. I have that side to me, and this is why I think it's a genuine win-win. Because if you're willing to invest a bit of time, then it's just a winner from every angle you look at. And personally, I think this scheme works really well on a kind of shadowing basis of employing someone with a bit of oomph who's just desperate for a bit of a chance, and just match them up with someone in your business or yourself, just to trail around, learn some stuff, tell them stuff, train them up, and just see what they do with the opportunity. I think that works really well, and it's probably a bit easier than trying to think of how to keep someone productively occupied for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 months, which is going to tax your systems for some of you. So yeah, let's get things wrapped up. Conor, I do appreciate it. Big thumbs up. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot to everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
You'll see.
Thanks, Conor.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Conor.
That was really useful. Thank you.
Tim and Conor, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Tim.
Bye. Thanks, Tim. See you later.
Cheers.
See you later, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Sam Lee.
It's a Sam. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, Conor, that was really good. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks a lot for jumping on. Yeah, it was great to get a bit of input at the end there.
I'm fed up with talking to people about this. I can just put them your way and then